Well, hello, teachers. Welcome back to Teacher Life, a toolkit for educators who would like to have a successful school year. Hi, I'm Miss B,
And I'm Miss G, and I'm a high school social studies teacher.
and welcome to Teacher Life. Today, we're going to talk about diversity in education.
Okay, educators, as you may well know, diversity in education includes a broad range of initiative and ideas. And the goal behind all these initiative and ideas is to make sure that your educational environment is safe, inclusive, and equitable for as many identities as possible, right? And all those identities, especially in the classroom, are attached to people, namely children and educators as well.
So, diversity in education is not critical race theory, guys. It's just not.
Okay, so if you look at the definition for critical race theory, it is definitely in education, but mostly in law school. All right, so why should we incorporate diversity in education? Right? There are many reasons. The first reason, educators, is that in the learning environment or in education as a whole, we should want to have an inclusive environment. We want every learner who comes into our classroom or in the educational environment to feel included.
I agree. And so, one thing I try to do is number three, motivate students. Get them excited about what we're reading, what we're going to write, what we're going to research in our English class.
For me, number five is my go to. I love to help students gain an understanding and respect for multiple perspectives, multiple cultures, and multiple backgrounds, right? Because we all come from different places, believe it or not. In my AP Human course, we're looking at culture now. And we've done several assignments on culture where, we'll do a food for thought and students will bring in a food item from their culture and they'll explain the history of it. Right now we're doing a comic strip called Culturally You, right? And it's just wonderful to hear kids talk about their diverse background, all the places that their family come from. And so it makes that student feel included, but it also helps other students gain an understanding of other cultures in the world and their own.
And what I like about that, Miss G, is that we both know that our school, the majority of the students look alike. But just because we have similar skin colors and hair texture doesn't always mean we're from the same cultural background.
Agreed.
And I like the fact that you do allow the students to come in and show each other that, yeah, we might look alike, but I'm from this particular cultural background, which may very well be different from yours, even though we look similar.
And just on the opposite side of that, even when we did the food for thought, we found that culturally too, we share a lot of the food items. And one example is, in the country where I was born, we had something called we call it cassava, and we make all type of things out of it, porridge, um, and cassava as a potato. It's almost like a yam. And another student, a student from a Hispanic or Latina culture, they said they call it yuca, and they made yuca fries. And so, I went to a restaurant and tried yuca fries, and I have not stopped eating them.
Wow.
I love yuca fries, but even in trying to understand multiple perspectives, sometimes we see that we have a lot of things in common as,
And,
you know, people.
and what we do in our English class is we tend to, when we go outside the traditional English literature, because that includes text by white or and black writers. So we tend to read books, like one of our favorite novels is from a Latina perspective, and the kids really enjoy it. And that allows all our us to see at least three different perspectives by the end of the school semester. And we can talk, because what I notice is that when we're reading a text, if we don't look at who the author is, the students tend to think the author is African American.
They hear it in
And
our
so we have to
voice.
look at and kind of do a quick, hey, let's check into who wrote this text, where they're from, and also when they wrote it. And they're like, oh, I just assumed. And I said that's why we kind of look at and take a moment and talk about the authors, so that we don't just assume that everyone we're reading happens to be African American.
Awesome. Awesome. I like that. Nice. Okay.
Okay, so educators, let's look at 7 ways to support the diversity in our classrooms. The first thing we need to do is kind of go through and see what kind of teaching materials are we using. Are they all from one cultural perspective? Like I stated earlier, in my English class, we at least addressed 3 different distinct cultural perspectives. So, what voices, that's the question you can ask yourself, are speaking in your classroom?
Awesome. I like that. Even when I am creating PowerPoints for presentations, I always think about who I'm showing the students. I would try to look for visuals and clip arts that represent not only just different cultures, but young teenagers, even in age, and so that
Yeah.
they can see themselves in items that we do in the classroom. So I pay special attention to teaching materials because I want them to see themselves in or make a connection while we're in the classroom and we're trying to learn whatever content we're learning. I also find that getting getting to know your students is key. And so every student has a different identity, has a different personality. If you have children, if you don't have children,
Mhm.
you have family members, you know that everyone is diverse in their and unique
Yes.
in their own right. So it's just important and little ways you can get to know students. There are students that'll assist you. There are students that want to run errands for you. There are students that want to help other classmates. So you learn little things about them, and then you use those ways to get them to help you. I have a student in my first block that wants to be a teacher. So she's in a teacher program, and she asked me if she can be my intern, and I'm like, I don't want an intern, but I'm like, okay,
Right. I get those every year too. But
because
another way to get to know our students is as you're looking out throughout that classroom, uh, birth order. Birth order says a lot about a student and a person's personality. I don't know if you remember that year we had some teacher training where we kind of looked at our own birth orders and got a perspective about what that birth order means for you as an individual. Do you remember
vaguely, I
that one?
think I do remember that vaguely. Seems like a
Well, for me,
lifetime
I
ago.
kind of I was able to relate being the oldest and one of two, but each of us were raised as only children because there's such a great age gap between the two of us that my parents always say, hey, it was like raising two only children. And so when we do that in our classroom, we kind of tease those babies. Oh, you must have been the baby in the family. And they're like, yep, how did you know? So that also helps to build that diverse, inclusive school culture when we kind of can see personalities, even based on something as simple as birth order.
That is so true. Because as I reflect back on the older kids, they're always like, "Oh, I'm the one that have to take care of everybody." So they tend to
Yeah.
be like the more responsible speaking kid. They're almost like a mini parent.
Yes.
That is true. So another
And I
way,
guess I wanted to mention that just to state this, and I'm going to state and be very plain. Diversity does not always mean race.
agreed, agreed. There's so many other things, agreed. Ethnicity, gender, even disability, so agreed. Um, in any case, another way to support diversity in the classroom, of course, is be willing to address inequality. You know, there are nefarious actions out in the world, whether it's discrimination, how people are treated all over the world within their
Yes.
same environment, in the social, our social cultural environment. And so things come up, and because we have a diverse group of students that um, many times experience discrimination, not to say, sometimes they don't are discriminative, right? But
Hmm.
I'm never afraid to talk about it simply because we are teaching them how to deal with these situations, right? And we want, even though it's a negative situation, we want to give them options, choices, ways to process out things that a lot of times, it's coming at them in a negative way if someone is discriminating against them, or if someone is discriminating, we can speak to them about the harm they cause, so as we are helping to shape these young minds and sending them into the world, we also have the opportunity to teach them or help them to process out and learn how to address inequality and discrimination that they will inevitably see in the world.
Yes, and we have a very academically diverse population in my classroom when we are servicing students with individual education plans. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of stuff that we do in a regular uh, learning environment, general level, accelerated AP, we tend not to do it in our IEP classes. And one of those things is simply making a student read aloud. Because if you're already in that environment where you have, and you know you have, and it's documented that you have some learning struggles, it's you have a choice to say, oh, I don't feel like reading today. Because what we did learn is that those who would like to read always want to read. So we can always call on, hey, can we get a volunteer? But if we call on a student and they say, oh, I don't feel like reading today, we move on. We move on. Especially at the beginning when we're just getting to know our scholars and how they are comfortable within that classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Give us some other ways. Let's see what we got here.
I think you just hit number five, dealing with meeting diverse learning needs, with the different levels of students that we encounter, from class to class. All right. And
That's true.
another key um, way to support diversity in the classroom is hiring diversely. Right. When I was in college, one of my professors, we were talking about the topic of young males and their lack of interest in education. And one of the initiatives at the university was trying to encourage more male um, college students to go into the teaching field, right? Because he was
Hmm.
quoting the study that said to us that um, like having teachers of color, increase academic performance of students of color, but having male teachers did the same thing for young males, right? And so hiring the diversity, whether it's women, whether it's men, whether it's people of color, whether it's Latina, whether I think it goes back to the idea that when kids see themselves in their teachers, or people that they may model themselves after, I think they're more likely to buy in than maybe if they can't see themselves in that person. Maybe they're less likely to connect, or maybe they'll see this person, share something in common with me, so maybe I can listen, or I can't say
Just
more so.
relate. Yeah. Just
Relate.
relating.
Agreed. Agreed. All right. Well, there are much ways that educators, you can support diversity. I'll put some links in our description, so make sure you check it out.
Yeah.
And so the idea, educators, and you know this, if you're teaching in a classroom of diverse students, is that everybody matters, and as we engage learners, we want them to feel included, we want them to feel supported, and we want them to feel that their identity, who they are, matters to us in the educational environment.
I agree, Miss G. I definitely agree. And I want to just stress that one of the easiest ways is just to acknowledge that, hey, we are different, but we all matter.
Yes, yes.
Well, all right, teachers. If you think that our video was helpful, please click that like button. And if you love our content in general, helping teachers have great school years, hit the subscribe button. And don't forget the notification bell so that when we upload, you're notified every time we have a new video.
Also, educators, we'd like for you to share ways in which you promote or include diversity in your classroom. So please share those in the comments. Thank you for joining us and enjoy your teacher life.
Enjoy your teacher life, guys. Have a great day.